Good to see everyone. So, Sego, Scanat Goa, Yongyats, LaylaBlack, Oswego, Nido Wageno. Hello. I hope the great peace is with you. Welcome. My name is LaylaBlack, and I am from Six Nations. I am just learning my language of GAGL, Mohawk, and that is going to be part of the story that you will learn as well. But before we begin, it is believed by the Haudenosaunee and many other indigenous cultures that anytime that minds gather, anytime we have a gathering of 3 or more of our minds, we are able to accomplish and connect our energies and accomplish great things. So in order to do that, we need to connect our minds in a good way. So I have brought my smudge here. This is white sage, sweetgrass, cedar, and tobacco, the 4 sacred medicines. And if you have one, you can smudge just to clear the space. Like I said, this workshop is going to be a little bit different. I know everybody's here because they're like, give me the social media secrets. But this is going to take you through a process. And even if I was to give you every secret there is to Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, you wouldn't be at a place where you're ready to share your story yet. So that's kind of what we're going to focus on here. So I want to begin in the state of gratitude. So when we open up a ceremony, which is 3 or more people, we start with what is called the Thanksgiving address. And essentially, they go through and thank everything from the ground up. When it was described to me, it was described as a ladder. So you work your way up the ladder. You thank for first of all, everyone that's here. And then you go through the grass and the greens and the waters, all the way up to the air and the heavens and the creators and the winds and thunders. And sometimes this Thanksgiving address can take up to 25 minutes. So before they even begin discussing or creating or celebrating anything, they put themselves into that utmost state of gratitude. So that's what I want to do here today. We're not going to do the Thanksgiving address. I haven't quite learned it yet, and it's quite long. But I do want everyone to just, if you're able to, are they able to turn their microphones on? Can we give them that power? I think we can give you the power to turn their microphones on. So what I would like you to do is just think of a word. So as you just anchor yourself, plant your feet flat on the ground, and just take a big deep breath and think of, when you think of gratitude, something right now in this moment that you're grateful for. What is the one word that comes to you? And for me, just because this has been such a focus, it is water. And even as the beads of sweat and water are escaping my body right now, it has been all around me and it has been so important. So my word is water. And I only say one word because we want to try and keep this in an hour. But who would like to go next? I see Rob's microphone is already ready to go. You want to share your one word of gratitude?
My one word is connection.
Connection. I love that word. Great word. Laura?
Oh, immediately it was family for sure.
Awesome. I love that. Anyone else?
Peace.
Peace?
Peace.
Awesome. Great.
I'm thinking community.
Amazing. Who's next?
Mine was warmth because of the warm weather.
Oh, yeah, I know. I'm feeling it for sure.
I was thinking home.
Home. Great one.
Home.
Anyone else?
I was thinking relationships to echo friends and family and connection, community.
Awesome. Great.
Mine was cedar.
I love the cedar. So there's a story behind the cedar. And the gist of it is that when you light the cedar, you know how it crackles, right? It pops. So it's said that when you put the cedar on the fire or on your ceremonial fire, that is actually getting the attention of the creator. So it gets his attention we want to talk to you, pay attention to us. So I love hearing that because it just makes me think of, oh, he's listening. We have made that connection. Awesome. Cedar. Anyone else want to share? Sandra, did you say something? You're muted there. I can unmute you. There you go.
Family.
Family.
Definitely
Great.
family.
And
And
Valerie?
Layla, yeah, and I have love.
Love. Oh, awesome. Did we miss anybody? I saw that Christian just came in late. We were just sharing our words of gratitude. I don't know if you have your microphone going, but just a word of gratitude that comes to you first when you think of it.
Okay, so hi, Layla. So yeah, I just got in, so I'm gonna go for the next question. But hello, everybody. Sorry for being late.
No worries, no worries. Okay. All right. So let's get into it. Okay. Because you guys are probably wondering who I am and why we're here. So I want to share with you a little bit of the backstory on why we are here. And if I could just ask everybody to mute your microphones and your videos. Oh, you don't have to turn your videos off. I still like to see your face. So yeah, first of all, blood and water. So this is just a component. Today is just a component of the overall project. And my idea was to turn my story with water into a mini documentary. And I'm hoping that some of you, after you've gone through these workshops, will want to star in my documentary. And we will be able to pull from these stories that we create and these digital assets that we create to make a multimedia amazing documentary, as well as including music into that, because I feel like music is medicine. So who am I? Long story short, I'm a college dropout. 8 years ago, actually it's longer than that, maybe like about a decade ago, I was living in the basement of a bar. I was covered in tattoos, a broke musician. I was working telemarketing jobs. I was stuck with drug addiction, self-loathing, drinking, just to numb myself. And that's kind of where I was not too long ago. Then I mastered this thing called social media. And this was before. Now everyone is a master of social media. But when I got started, it was a little bit different. But since then, I've been able to build multiple 7-figure businesses internationally, spoke on stages of like 10,000 people. And speaking on stage, speaking in front of people would rather die than public speaking. It's like the number one fear over death. So now I'm a stay-at-home mom of 3 with my husband, raising our kids full-time with our online businesses, our multiple online businesses, and also founded a women's group. And this is one of my special projects is creating this women empowerment group, this community of women. It's called the Women's Connection, actually, funnily enough. And a passionate business coach. So I work with a lot of small business owners, entrepreneurs to help them leverage digital businesses with clients paying me over $5,000 a month just to consult on their businesses. But that's who I am. That's not where the story starts. And that, when we look at this right here, a chubby nerd story. First of all, I didn't ever think that anybody would care about a story of a native kid growing up in town, getting bullied, too smart for my own good, teacher's pet, straight A student, running home after school so the bullies wouldn't catch me. And hearing their taunts. I remember hearing their taunts in the back of the classroom. And they used to call me these 3 words. And I've had big breakthroughs with these 3 words: stinky, fat, chink. And I'm not Chinese, but I look different. And that was the word that they chose. So I've done a lot of work on those words and understood that I had actually carried them around with me for many, many years. And they were still being echoed in my brain. So the story I was telling myself over and over again, I only ever was able to heal from it when I started to tell it. But there's more depth to that story. And that's kind of where the Blood and Water documentary series came into my mind, is because my story, my connection to water. When we think about this project for water, and there's all these amazing art projects for water, I started to think about, what is my story with water? And my family owns about 40 acres on the Six Nations reservation. And my papa, Gord Stotts, he dug 5 ponds on that land. And he always told me, Layla, whoever has the water has the power, has the life. The water is everything. And so when we go into this story of my connection with the water, because I just actually moved out there. And so I wake up every day on this water, and it just speaks to me every day. I hear my papa's stories. I hear that connection. So I started to dive deeper into that story. And you're looking at a big chubby nerd, right, on your screen. But when you dive deeper into where that came from, and where the trauma, where my discontent in my life came from, it came from my papa. And my papa was, his mother went to the Mohawk Institute residential school. So when she went to that school, she had her language taken from her. She had her culture taken from her. She had her identity taken from her. And she literally had the Indian beat out of her. So it was no wonder when my papa was raising us, when we were kids, when we were growing up out there on the farm, he always told us he had this fear of being Native. He had this fear of our Indigenous ancestry. He didn't want us to go out to the reserve. He told us it was dangerous. He didn't want us to use our last name, Stotts, on our resume. So many of these trickling effects of residential schools that were passed down because of what happened there. But even in that, even though he didn't speak his language, even though he was afraid of his identity, even though Mohawk Turtle Clan to us was just a word, we didn't know anything about our history, the ceremonies, the traditions, the teachings. We didn't learn any of that. Even though that was taken from him, his connection to the water was everything. They couldn't take that from him. They could take his culture, they could take his pride, his Indigenous roots, but they couldn't take his connection to the water. So all of this trauma that happened in my story, I did grow up in Brantford. So I grew up in town outside of the reservation. And I had this feeling like I never knew where I fit. I didn't fit in with the kids in town. They made fun of me. They called me a chink. I didn't fit in with the kids on the reserve because they called me an apple, red on the outside, white on the inside, right? So I had all of these stories that I was telling myself in my head, and I didn't know where I belonged. So when I look back at my story, in telling this story and understanding that I had to come through, I had to face these limiting beliefs. I actually give them a name, and they're called the Mean Girls, because there's like 3 girls that used to torment me in school, and they were the Mean Girls. So I actually gave them a name in my head. So when these beliefs like, you're not good enough, you can't do it, nobody cares, why would they listen? When these thoughts come into my head, you're fat, you're ugly, those are the Mean Girls. So I had to defeat them, and I had to do a lot of self-work, a lot of personal development to even be able to speak on stage, to even be able to hear my voice right now and communicate that story, even to say those 3 words, stinky, fat, chink. The first time I said them out loud, I was at a personal development event, and the instructor had me on a microphone. There was 100 people in the crowd. I was on the stage, and he was taking me through my childhood traumas. And he said, "What do you hear?" I was talking about being in class. I was talking about them bullying me. And he said, "What do you hear?" And I said those words, stinky, fat, chink. And by the end of it, he made me yell it. He's like, say it again, say it louder. And so here I am on the front of this stage in front of hundreds of strangers, bawling my eyes out, yelling, stinky fat chink, stinky fat chink. And it was like a moment of awareness, right? Like those words, they have been lingering in the back rooms, back corners of my mind for 25 years. And I let them go that day. So this is just part of my story, but as we get to know each other, you'll get to see other elements of my story. But I really want you to think about your story. And that's what we're here to do today. Okay. So the number one reason people don't tell their story is because they're afraid. And I actually had some of you reach out to me privately in messages saying that you had some fear. You had some resistance, some hesitance to actually share your story. So what I wanted to do before we get started is to create a space of safety. Okay, so in this workshop, in this Zoom room, we are all here together. And we can create this safe space for people to share their stories, for people to be vulnerable, for people to admit their mistakes and their failures and their flaws and their struggles. This is a place where you are safe to do that. So if you have that fear, we can eliminate that. Okay. So all we need to do, we're just going to close our eyes. I hope nobody gets weirded out by a little bit of visualization. Okay. So I want you to close your eyes. I'll close my eyes too. So I'm not looking at any of you and you're not looking at any of me. All right. So with me, just take one big deep breath. And I like to make that sound. I like to let my breath be heard. And one more. Now, with your eyes closed, I want you to become aware of the feeling of the surfaces underneath your feet, maybe the weight of your legs on a chair, the pressure of a chair against your back. Just become aware of the feeling of your body. And as you breathe in and out, I want you to allow yourself to become more relaxed with every breath. You feel the tension in your feet loosen. Like hundreds of tiny rubber bands are just dangling. You feel your legs relax. And work all the way up your body, checking every point, allowing your shoulders to rest, allowing your face, the muscles around your eyes and your mouth just to become loose and limp. And as you're in this state of relaxation, I want you to imagine a circle. And all of us are inside of that circle. And in this circle, there is no judgment. No one will be criticizing. No one will be offering advice. It is simply a place for you to share and be heard. And in this circle, we make that agreement with each other. So whether you're here with us in this moment, or you're watching this on a replay, it is like you are in the circle. And this is our circle of safety. Now I want you to imagine the water. And before you closed your eyes, I showed you a picture of the water. I want you to hear the sounds. How does the water look? Is it still? Is it moving? Is it flowing? Can you hear it? Can you smell it? This water is healing. This water represents your healing and your ability to heal from the stories that you've been carrying around. Now, before we end this visualization, I want you to drop a stone in the water. Hear it plop into the water. What do you see? What happens? The ripples. Now we are the ripples. And as we start to tell our stories, those ripples will spread. That circle of safety and sharing can spread, can grow. See how big it grows. All right. So now we just do a couple little face stretches. Wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, bring everything back to life, and come back into Layla land. All right. So this is something, like I said, this workshop is a little different. And we will, I promise you, we will be getting to all of the juicy, good stuff on how to get YouTube subscribers and how to create a YouTube video and how to do a Facebook Live. But before we get there, there is some work that has to be done. So why should you tell your story? Okay, there are 3 really big, meaningful reasons. There are some not so meaningful reasons, like to create an e-commerce site or to create a fan page that's going to make me money or to launch an ebook. But those are not what's going to motivate you to push through this story. Those are not what's going to motivate you to actually tell it authentically and to actually do it. Like, I don't know how long I told myself I was going to write a book, but to actually do it, you have to tap into these really meaningful reasons. So number 1, healing yourself. Okay. So when you tell your story, when you put it out there, when you actually verbalize it, it's like our brain hears it sometimes for the first time, and you're able to heal from it as you tell your story. Healing for others. So I had a woman come up to me, and it was one of these first time I had spoke on stage. I think there was like 1,000 people in a conference room, and they said, okay, go up there and teach about Facebook. So I go up on stage and I was so nervous. My knees, my legs were just shaking. And I completely forgot everything that I had prepared for Facebook. Okay, so this is like people's number 1 fears, getting up there and forgetting everything that you were just going to say. So I thought, okay, well, what am I going to do? I can't remember. So I told my story. And I started to talk about how telling my story on Facebook had allowed me to create this global audience. Okay. So I did that. And I thought, oh man, I totally bombed, right? And like, that was not at all what I wanted to teach on. And this woman comes up to me outside of the conference room and she grabs my hands and she says, Layla, thank you so much. You have inspired me to tell my story, that my story matters. She says, I am living in the back of my hair salon, practically homeless. I've lost my home. And, I've been struggling as a single mother, basically telling me her story there in front of me. And she had this feeling of belief in herself that if I could do it, this college dropout who dropped out of university, who started living in the basement of a bar, who was riddled with insecurities, who couldn't even look at myself in the mirror without calling myself fat, if I could do it, if I could make my story matter through something like Facebook, then maybe she could too. So she had a moment, a light bulb moment. And if I hadn't have forgotten all of my technical blah, 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 and just told my story, then that wouldn't have happened. And then there's this legacy of lessons that happens through real experiences. Who here has learned something? And let me just see a raise of hands if you're there. Who here has learned something from your grandmother or grandfather? Right. Who here wishes that you had some way to access that information again? Right? So my papa, he taught me so much, just walking around the fields of the land. When we were fishing on the ponds, he taught me about filters, and he taught me how to hammer a nail the right way. He taught me how to paint a fence. All of these lessons and stories that he would tell me. And my nan, his wife, she, it's just, I wish that they had a blog. I wish that she had written an ebook. I wish that they had started a YouTube channel, right? It's like, it almost brings me to tears at how much I wish that that had happened. So it's our responsibility, now that we know that these things are possible, now that we know that we can do that, we have the ability to leave that legacy for our grandchildren and their grandchildren and their grandchildren. You're creating this digital legacy through your real life experiences. So what if nobody cares, right? Who wants to hear another story of a kid being bullied? We have enough bullies. Who wants to hear another story of domestic abuse? Who wants to hear another story of, the drug addicted musician? Who wants to hear that? And that was kind of how I felt. I'm like, well, I feel like I'm just telling like everybody was bullied, weren't they? But it's when we share those lessons that happen in those moments that they become valuable. And one of the stories that is my go-to, and it's pretty much one of the most powerful stories across time. If you look at any of the movie series, any of the, in literature, in television, the underdog story, right? Can you think of a few underdogs? Rocky, Harry Potter, he was a total nerd. Frodo Baggins, definitely the underdog, right? Why do we love the underdog story? Because we relate to the underdog story. We see ourselves in them. Rudy, like, who doesn't love that movie, Rudy? It's because it's the underdog. We're cheering for the underdog. We're rooting for the underdog. So whether it is your personal story that you want to tell, whether it's your band story, whether it's your school story or your brand or your product, positioning yourself as the underdog and crafting an underdog story will allow you to create that emotional connection. People will be your biggest supporters, and they'll never feel like you're selling them stuff. They'll never feel like you're just a peddler. I got this. What do you want? I got everything that you need, like in my jacket. No, they will emotionally connect with you. And even if they don't buy from you on that first instance, even if they don't download your album, they will remember you and they will cheer you on. They will be on the sidelines saying, go, 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 keep going. And that sometimes can be more powerful than a sale. People find more joy in unexpected successes. Okay, so we like to see things happen unexpectedly. We like to be surprised. If the I do not know. I meant to grab like a football story, but I do not know football. I was like, if the Buffalo Bills won every year, but I don't even know if they're good. Are they the underdog? I don't know. And it gives us hope, right? It gives people hope. If they can do it, I can do it. So I went to university. My whole life I was told, Layla, get good grades, get a good job, get a career, and retire with, a 2-car garage and 3.5 children. That's the perfect life, right? And the only way that I could be successful is if I went to school. That is what I was taught. I don't think I am alone. So I did that. I was a chubby native nerd, and the only thing that I had was school. So I graduated high school a year early, before everyone else in my year. I got into McMaster, to their health science program. Ooh, amazing, right? Following my dreams, doing everything I'm supposed to do. And then I went to school, and I don't know if it was my heart telling me that this was not my path, or if it was just me living outside of my home for the first time in my life, but I just fell off the wagon. I stopped going to classes. I stopped handing in assignments. I started partying. I started skipping school. And eventually I dropped out. My second year I dropped out. And I remember this. I didn't tell my parents for the entire semester. They thought I was going to school because I was so afraid of them knowing that I had dropped out that I lied. So at this time, when I dropped out of school, I felt as though I had this big giant F tattooed on my, and I have lots of tattoos, but this big giant F tattooed on my forehead. I was a failure. And the only way for me to be successful was to go to school. So if I didn't do that, there was nothing else for me. I was destined for Tim Hortons drive-through. I was destined for telemarketing, hassling people for identity theft protection. That was my life. And that was all I could do. That was the only value that I had because I was a dropout. So I don't know if there's any dropouts that are listening to this, but to know that by using digital media and digital marketing and online communities and online audiences, by following this path, I've been able to be job free for the last decade of my life. I've traveled to over 16 different countries, building most of my business from my phone or my laptop. And I've never had to miss a moment in my child's lives. I've never had to send them to daycare. I've been there every second, every fall, every tear. And that for me is so precious. So if I could do that without a college degree, without that piece of paper on my wall saying I'm awesome, then so can you. And it gives that hope. Okay? So I want to share with you something that I was taught when I first started crafting my story, when I first started to develop and understand, okay, how do I put it all together? You know, I have this story. I know I've been through so much. I know I've accomplished so much. I'm a hand talker, and sometimes it gets crazy, knocking things over. But yeah, so how do I package the whole thing together? And so I read this book. It's called The Hero's Journey. And there's also another version called The Writer's Journey. But it's basically outlining the story of every single amazing movie I've ever seen in my life. Any Star Wars fans in here? Luke Skywalker fans? Okay, so we're like Star Wars nerds in our clan. And that is, we've doubled up. And that is one of the perfect examples of the hero's journey. So essentially in every story, there's a hero, right? Whether that's yourself or whose ever story you're telling. And then there's this normal world and the unknown world. Okay, so there's this normal world where we transcend into the unknown. So in the normal world, we have the call to adventure. There's something that calls us. There's some reason why we are called to make this great change, to get the prize, whatever it could be, or to make a change. Maybe things are just so bad. Things were just so painful where you were in that normal world. You had to make that transition into the unknown. So we get the call to adventure, then meeting a mentor. Okay, so who were some of the mentors that have helped you on your story? Then we cross that threshold. The mentor allows us to gives us the knowledge and the inspiration and pushes us over that threshold so that we cross into the unknown world. But when we get there, is it easy? No, right? Think of Frodo, Lord of the Rings, right? What happens when he crosses that threshold, when he finally makes that decision to go on the adventure and to destroy the ring? Trials and failure, right? Trials and failure, struggle, pain. It is never easy. But this is where we pull our skills. This is where we pull our growth. And this is how we communicate that experiential learning to others. Okay, so, and then you'll see there's also a helper. So typically the helper is a little bit different than the mentor. It's like a partner or someone that pushes you along the way. Death and rebirth. You guys can go through this. There's a whole bunch of information on the internet about the hero's journey. But we have this moment. We have this moment of, the final battle, the epic thing that happens. That is like that final quest. I would imagine Frodo at the edge of the Rock of Mordor. And if you don't know Lord of the Rings, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But if you do, then you understand that moment when he's holding the ring over, and he makes that epic rebirth. And then we go into the revelation. So that what is the, and this is a big one, because as you think of your story, there are essentially two storylines. There's the storyline of what you're actually going after, right? So destroying the ring of Mordor. And then there's the storyline of the internal change that happens when you get there. So one of the stories that I like to share is the story of Lightning McQueen. And if any moms are out there, you know the story of Lightning McQueen. So Lightning McQueen is after the Piston Cup, right? And he wants the Piston Cup. That's all he cares about is the cup. And there's this whole story of him trying to get the cup. And as he gets the cup, right? So these final changes, that's where these final changes are happening. He gets the cup and he's in that final race and he's like ready to win. He's like almost going to cross the finish line, but he sees, oh gosh, what's his name now? The old driver, and he sees his friend crash, right? He sees the legend that his idol, he sees him crash. And instead of winning the Piston Cup, he stops and he goes and he helps his friend cross the finish line. So in that story, the personal growth, the growth of Lightning McQueen is more valuable than the actual Piston Cup. So that's the gift. When we think of that gift of growth, it could be the Piston Cup, but he didn't win it. So his gift is actually the personal change that happens. And then we return, right? So after we go through this battle, after we go through this epic moment, we come back to the normal world. And sometimes that might be where you're at right now. Or you might say, hey, I'm at a different place right now in my story. I haven't even finished it yet. I'm still going on this journey. But then you bring all of those revelations, all of those gifts, all of those skills, all of that growth back to your normal world. And then you start to see that positive change. So that could be, so we'll kind of break it down into 3 chunks, okay? Because that can be, there's said to be 17 actual steps of the hero's journey, but I like to keep things simple, okay? I don't like to make things really complicated. So the initial step, we call the departure. So this is the call to adventure. This is, when Luke Skywalker leaves his homeland and goes to join Obi-Wan Kenobi. When Neo gets unplugged from the Matrix, all of these. In the departure stage, you leave the safety of the world you know, and you enter into the unknown, okay? Then the second stage is the initiation. So this is where you are facing all of those trials and tribulations. Your journey isn't safe. You're being tested in battle and skills and conflict. And the hero might not succeed. There are going to be failures, but presses on. You also meet allies, right? There's allies and there's foes that you meet on this journey. And if you think of every good story in history, they've always had allies and they've always had foes. And then stage 3 is the return. So having endured those trials, those hardships, that epic battle, right? That peak moment, the hero returns home, but it's no longer the same, right? Things have changed. Things have transformed. And now you are at peace with your past. Now I can say those words, stinky fat chink, and they don't have any power over me. I'm not embarrassed of them. And that's really weird, because I remember how much they used to bother me. And I wouldn't even want people to know that that's what I was called. Like even maybe 10 years ago, I would never admit that story to anyone. Now I tell it all the time on stage in front of 10,000 people. And I'm saying these words. I'm like, whoa, this is quite a change from who I used to be. Okay. So you might be thinking, Layla, what's with the chicken sandwich? And I will share this with you. Okay. So when I teach storytelling, I like to teach it like a sandwich. And it keeps things simple. You can get really complicated and you can evolve your story as it comes, as you start to tell it more and more. You can go through the 17 steps of the hero's journey. But like I said, I like to keep it simple. And because we are at the very first stages of our storytelling process, I want you to think of the chicken sandwich. Okay, so the chicken sandwich, the first bun down there, the first bun is that first initial, we'll go back to it, departure. So in my mind, I think of the before. Okay, so I think of the before. My bottom bun, I start my story. You never start your story with how amazing things are right now. Oh, I love my life. I'm so successful. I've done so much. No, you start at the beginning. You start with the darkness. You start in the before. Okay, so before I had any confidence in myself, I think I told you guys, I would look in the mirror and all I could see was fat. And I used to be really obsessed with how just being overweight, and I felt like it controlled everything. I felt like everything in my life that was bad because I was fat. And these insecurities of, oh my gosh, just hating my body image, and that all came from a lot of my stories of being in French class and them drawing pictures of me as a fat whale and passing them around the class. So the story of before paints a picture for where things were at before you made this journey. Then the chicken right there, the chicken in the middle, is that moment. It's the battle. It's like the meat in the middle of where the lessons come from, where the struggles come from, where the pain comes from, and where you make that final decision, where you make that final change. You do something clicks, something changes in your life. And the top bun, right here on top, is the after. So where am I now? How is my life different now that I've come through this full sandwich? How is my life different? What feels different? What looks different? How amazing it is. And when you package your story like a sandwich like that, people will pay attention. People will relate. People will listen. People will accept you in. And that's the structure. Now, of course, if you go back, you can sprinkle in a lot of these moments, the trials, the failures, the helper, the mentor, the return home, all of these components to your story. But if we want to keep it simple, stack it like a sandwich, okay? The before, the meat, the moment, and then the top bun, the after, okay? So I want you to think, here it comes. I want you to think about your story now. And as we've been crafting, as we've been discussing these stories, I've been giving you lots of examples, and I've been giving you some of my own examples and some that you may know. So I want you to, if anyone is feeling brave, to come out and tell us your story. Okay, let's see. I wonder if I can just choose to pick on Rob because I know Rob.
Well, first of all, I want to say that I'm brave for sure.
You
But
are
if you
so
wanna
brave.
Go ahead and pick someone up. Just go ahead. Okay.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so tell us your story in the sandwich model.
Yeah. Okay. So I would start by talking about in my youth how I was using a lot of physical activity to get my energy, to release some energy. I'm sorry, I'm French. My mother's tongue is French, so I'm going to try my best, but you guys can follow up. So it's really the story of having drug addiction and a lot of need to move and to be in action all the time, which led me to I guess the struggle of finding some passion, finding something that I would want to do. I never bought into the go to school, get a great education. I didn't want any of that. So I joined the circus because I had artistic I was good in gymnastics. This came easy to me. But remember that it came easy to me, so I didn't have to fight really much for it. But I ended up in again dealing with drugs, because circus world, artistic world. I was able to use Tai Chi to get off these things, but then even when I was expressing my passion, I had a circle of influence that led me to consume again, to consume, yeah, to use drugs, to use again. And eventually, I went off traveling. I went off touring with the circus, but still there was something missing. And I met my wife. I had 3 beautiful children, and my life was seemingly going great in the outside, but in the inside, it all fell off when we got divorced after 16 years of marriage. And that's the big that's the depth of the but it seems to me like it's always up and down and up and down. It's like I would have 10 stories to tell, but to make this one clear and go to the point, I would say that after struggling and using all the tools that I had gathered to overcome that divorce, I finally met a mentor that is showing me a way to financial independence, because my freedom, the way that freedom is calling me, is by being free of having choices, being able to make a lot of different choices. And so, and be able to travel with my kids and try to be the best father I can be for my kids. And so this would be the top bun. Today I'm teaching people how to build a residual income, a alternative income, and I want to use storytelling and want to use these medias to be able to share that story.
I love it. I love it. And I love how you said that there's like 10 stories in there, because there is. And that's the thing, is that when you're looking at developing your audience, when you're looking at developing that connection with your audience, it's that trickling effect of these stories and the layering effect of getting to know you and these different moments in your life that create that bond with you and create that trust with you. And you know that people will do business with who they know, like, and trust. And there were so many elements of that story that I think a lot of people out there could relate to a lot. And some of the big changes that you went through, and the addiction cycles that you went through, and all of that sort of thing. So I think that there are some super awesome components. There's one thing I forgot about the sandwich. And the one thing that I forgot about the sandwich is the secret sauce. You guys want to know what the secret sauce is? Okay, so the secret sauce, you know, that mayo, lettuce combo sauce on top that just makes it takes your sandwich to the next level. And I'll tell you right now, you probably won't like it, but the secret sauce is pain. Okay, so the more that you can hammer in the pain that you experienced. So in those drug addictions moments, how did you feel about yourself? What kind of things were you saying to yourself? What kind of experience, how were people treating you? All of these painful experiences that we're taught not to expose, that we're taught to keep inside of us and never tell and admit that we're afraid, admit that we experience pain. Those are what's going to elevate your story and allow you to connect on a deeper level. We are, as human individuals, we are more motivated to avoid pain than to seek pleasure. So I am more motivated by the painful parts of your story than I am about your amazing success right now, and about you being able to be a teacher and teaching other people this financial freedom. I am more connected to those drug addicted, dark moments of struggle and pain. That's the secret sauce in the story. And that's how you're going to pull them in to your underdog story. But very, very good. I thought that was great. And for you to condense it like that in like about 5 minutes is really good, because it's hard when you're first getting started to pick the moments, pick the elements of your story that you want to share, and ones that could be shared in a different story. But great work, Christian. Very good. And I did like the French accent. It's kind of cool. Anyone else want to share? I would love to hear. I'm going to pick on you, Rob, because I know you got a story. I know your story.
Okay, I'm unmuting. I don't know if you know my story, but I just thought it was so amazing when Christian said very offhand, "I joined the circus." That was
like it was like a
that was
high
amazing.
shocker, right? You're like, what? That part caught me too.
I wrote it down because that's a brilliant line, and that'd be an amazing way to start a story. I also realized as I'm sitting here that I've been telling my story for like 50 years that I've been writing songs, which is a different way of telling a story because in some ways I just keep adding to it as I go because I keep learning stuff. But can I also just acknowledge, Layla, like, when you are so open, and that is so compelling, just listening to you tell a little bit about your story. You've really only kind of told us a little bit, but that willingness to be open like that is so endearing. And so how can someone not engage with a story when you're so open like that? It's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
So I don't know, I'm still figuring my story out, to be honest. As I get older, I keep learning more about what kind of father I had, what kind of mother I had, what kind of childhood I really had. My perspective keeps changing, which means it's never ending fodder, and material for more stories and to keep adding to my story. So I don't know. My story's so long because I'm 61. So and I was kind of born on another planet called Southern California. So I wouldn't even know where to begin to give a bit of a condensed version.
Okay, so let me think about let me look at your story because I know elements of it. And one of the big stories that I see with you, Rob, is this evolution of being in the music scene, being in the drug scene, being in that moment, being in those dark places, and then reemerging now as a mentor to other musicians, as a guide, as a wise resource, such an integral part of the new musicians, the new sort of, I guess, the evolution of musician and being part of that process. And so that's just kind of what I see. I see like the bottom bun is like when you experienced it yourself and you had to pull yourself out of there, you had to get yourself through that alive. And that middle meat is like the struggle. It's like that moment, like that breakthrough aha moment, whatever it was that pulled you out of that world and allowed you to make a transition into this new world where you didn't need all of that, where you didn't have, where you had a beautiful, amazing wife and you had a family and you had a life and you were still able to create music, even in that moment. And now being a mentor in the top bun is, you have a great relationship with music now. It's not about getting messed up. It's not about, party. It is actually like a deep and meaningful connection that you have with music and your ability to pass those lessons on to other musicians. So that's kind of what I see it in like a condensed Rob Lamoth sandwich story.
You condensed that so beautifully. Honestly, Layla, that was amazing. If we could just do this every Friday.
Okay. We'll just create.
No, that was amazing. You said a lot in so few words there. And really, thank you just for that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, guys, I'm actually just moving locations here because I have Logan is setting up a musical live stream and he's got to take my light and everything. So we're just going to move around my house for a little bit. And I would love to hear anyone else's story though. I don't have to go. I don't have to go quite yet because he's going to play a few songs on his own solo. So I still have some time with you guys. And I do have some homework. So I'll get to the homework right now. Hey, Log, if you want to set up that live stream, it's good to go there. I'm going to do homework with these incredible, amazing people. I'm so appreciative. There he is.
Hello, miss you guys.
All right, so he's setting up one stream. I'm going out here. There's just something about outside. It's amazing. Okay, so let's get to, anybody else want to share? Oh, hello, little one. Hello, precious. Hi. I love your dress. Is that a pretty dress? We love dresses. Okay, so does anyone else want to take a brave crack at sharing your story?
Layla, I will.
Yeah, awesome. Way to go, Valerie.
I don't know how eloquent I'll be, but here we go. I was a teenager with very little or non-existent self-esteem and self-confidence. I got in a relationship with an older fellow. Ultimately, we got into a 20-year marriage and relationship that was very controlling and abusive, physically and emotionally. I didn't have to think for myself because I was thought for, told what I could do, when I could do it, how I could do it, who I could do it with, that kind of thing. And even after all of that, he had an affair on me after all of that. And nearing the end of the 20 years, I started to understand and realize that people will treat you the way you allow them to treat you. And that was from a radio program, and I heard it every day, and it was reinforced. And so I got up the courage and I left with 5 children. And now I'm writing a book. And this workshop is phenomenal for that. And I was going to really fluff over a lot of the really bottom bun, you know, like just
and the
blend it
secret
in there
sauce, right?
somewhere.
We just want to leave the
Right?
like imagine a sandwich with no sauce. It is just it's not the same. It is not the same sandwich.
No. And now I believe in myself and I'm gaining courage all the time. And like Rob, always evolving and learning and growing. And I really get a gut reaction when I hear of women being abused and controlled. And I know what that's like because I was there and I know that they shouldn't be there anymore. So my goal is to assist them and help them and encourage and empower them.
And I love that. Amazing. I love that we have such a broad, diverse group of people with different missions, different purposes, different stories, right? We all have a different story. And we've been telling stories since before recorded history, right? Thousands and hundreds of thousands of years ago. I think it was 15,000 BC is the first story ever recorded through cave drawings. So that was the first time they saw a story. So yeah, we've been telling stories and it's just going to evolve from there, Valerie. The more that you keep telling it. And one of the things, okay, so we got to get to this homework because I want you guys to get this done. So first thing that I want you to do is write your story, write it down. Okay. So I put you guys on the spot to share it verbally, but when you write it down, you get this element of structure and you start to understand it. You start to see it and you can use your brain to identify points where you could expand, or you're like, okay, well, Layla said I needed some secret sauce on there. So how can I expand on that pain, on that struggle, on that hurt, and just write it down using the sandwich method. And if you want to get really, really daring, you can go into the hero's journey and use some of those elements in your story. Then I want you to submit it to the Facebook group. So first of all, if you're not part of the Facebook group, okay, let's go over there to the Facebook group right now. So under the, oops, you guys do not judge me on my desktop, please. Toby would be like, that's terrible. You guys should see my email inbox. It's atrocious. Where's Facebook? Where are you? So in Facebook, you will see, if you put in I always call it GAGL. Is that what you guys call it? GAGL? Oh, look, Logan's live all on his own. He got it going. So GAGL 2020, LaylaBlack, Blood and Water. So if you search that, if you guys aren't a member of that yet, make sure you join in there, because that's where we're going to be working on your story, and I'm going to be able to give you some assistance and to give you some feedback. So the first thing that you want to do is join the group, and then there will be a thread there where you can post your homework. So you can post your sandwich story. And then the last part of your homework is just to read and to support others. So to let people know that their stories matter, right? It makes a difference when someone says, oh my gosh, that part of your story I really resonated with, or even just like hearing about the circus, like it gives us feedback, and feedback is everything, especially in marketing. Feedback is everything. So for Christian, he knows that circus line is really powerful. He knows that circus line captures people's attention. So how can he use that circus line more effectively? Like Rob said, maybe right at the beginning, how joining the circus and drug addiction, I don't know. I'll have to think on that one. But allowed me to, how I went from joining the circus and struggling with drugs to being financially independent and teaching others how to do the same. Okay. So you can use that circus line very effectively. And then the next session. So the next session, this is where we're going to dive into actually getting you guys into the digital element. So when your story's ready, that's when we can start to share it. So we're going to talk about video. We're going to talk about confidence building. We're going to talk about lighting and editing. We're going to talk about the top 5 social or digital media outlets to share your story once it's done. Once you've crafted it into something that you feel is powerful and engaging and emotional. I'm going to share my secret Facebook tricks so that you can tap into like-minded people, like people that have been through this story too. Find all your people and your target audience on Facebook. And then some strategic methods to monetize your story and to create an income stream. So yes, maybe income is not one of those big, huge reasons, not one of those big meaningful reasons, but it is a reason. And if you can monetize your story, if you can put it into a course or an ebook or a workshop or something that can allow you to leverage it, then that's just a bonus, right? All right, so that's the end of the session. Before you go, I want you to, oh my goodness, my computer is going crazy here. Before you go, I want you to think back to those ripples. And sometimes we are more motivated to do things for other people than we would do for ourselves. And so the time that you spend working on this story, I want you to think about those ripples. I want you to think about that one person. I want you to think, Christian, about that one man out there who is struggling he feels stuck. He feels like he's being controlled. He feels like he has no freedom. Maybe he's going through a divorce as well, or maybe he, had a drug addiction in his past before. And so you think about that one person that you could impact by telling their story and inspire them that their story matters, inspire them that they're on a journey, that they can heal, that they can grow, that they can get through this. And then they tell their story. And then those ripples keep spreading and those ripples keep expanding. So the work that you do, this is not just homework. This is not just self-work, but this is world work. And the more that we tell our stories, the more that we make positive ripples into the world. All right. So with that being said, guys, I really appreciate it. I can't wait to see you all in the Facebook group. If you have me on Facebook, if you are a friend, I would love to hear your feedback, your thoughts. Before we go, could we get a grid picture? I don't know how we do that. Can we put it in on like a grid so we can see everybody's faces and turn?
At the top corner, it should say speaker view or the other view. I think everyone has to do that individually.
Okay. Let me see if I can do that. Oh, yes. Okay. I see the gallery view.
Yeah.
Okay. So for the gallery view, I just want to get a quick screenshot. I'm the screenshot queen. That was kind of a tongue twister. So that we can put this on our Instagram and talk about the amazing time that we had. So here, what we'll do is, I don't know if we can all do a heart and then get a screenshot of that. Can someone screenshot that? Chris, can you screenshot that? Can anybody screenshot that? So the heart, you got to put your thumbs down at the bottom. That's the secret. And then it looks like a awesome. So if not, we can screenshot the recording once it's out there. Yay. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you for your hearts. Thank you for being here, guys. I really appreciate you. And I can't wait for our next session. And I hope you all had a great time. Learn
Thank you,
lots.
Layla. It's been
Can't wait for you
awesome.
to
Thank
tell your
you.
story. Awesome.
No, no.
Nyawa.
Thank you, everyone.